I'm assuming if you've clicked on this video, it's because your dream is to become a Fortnite pro and you've probably been trying to go pro for a long time, but have ended up plateauing and not improving. I know what that feels like, and it's horrible. So in this video, I'm going to be going over 5 essential tips you need to implement into your life if you really want to go pro. I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get right into the video. First, I want to talk about aim. There seems to be a misconception within the Fortnite community, one that I used to believe myself, that if you just play the game, whether that's ranked or 1v1 build fights, your aim will improve itself, without you actually having to do any work. And actually, that's the problem with improving as a whole. So many players think that they'll just magically become a pro player without doing any work at all. And that's why actual professional players are the best, because they don't believe in this. Now back to aim specifically, you have to have an aim routine. There's nothing else to it. Your aim won't improve to the level it needs to do if you don't consistently train it. I would suggest you train your aim for 15 minutes every day, obviously spending more or less time depending on how much time you have to play every day. KovaaKs is undoubtedly the best way to improve your aim. It provides a completely clean environment with minimal input delay, where the only thing you have to focus on is the aiming. If I grind KovaaKs for even 1 week, I see massive improvements in my aim compared to if I just played Fortnite. If you want a really good KovaaKs routine to grind that already exists, I would suggest using Npen's routine, which the share code to is up on screen. I will also add the share code in the description. To load the routine using the share code, simply go onto KovaaKs, click on online playlists at the top, and paste the code into the bar at the bottom, and then click search. Then click the play button on the playlist and go through it. Personally, I think Npen's routine is far better than any others I have tried or playing single maps, as it practices both tracking and flicking aim. However, if you want to make your own playlist, go onto local playlists and click create playlist. Then select the online option, before clicking on the pencil and clicking yes on the pop-up. Give your playlist a name and head over to online scenarios to search for and select the scenarios you wish to practice in. Have each one of these on repeat at least 4 times and then do this routine every day. KovaaKs is definitely the best method to improve your aim. It is recommended by so many pros and I have definitely felt the results of it. It only costs £7.19, which is about $9, but if you can't afford that, practicing aim in-game is also a good way to go. One way you can practice aim in-game is going through aim duels, and a good map for this will be linked in the description. This provides slightly more realistic practice than doing KovaaKs, as the opponent will be moving like a real Fortnite player rather than being AI. However, it does come down to actually being able to find an opponent to face in these. However, you can also use Raider's practice map, which includes an aim duel with a bot, meaning you never have to find an opponent to practice your aim. Another way to go to practice your aim in-game is using zero build realistics. These actually put you in semi-realistic in-game situations and allow you to focus on aim rather than building. One thing to ensure though, however you choose to practice your aim, is that you are doing it consistently every day without fail. This will maximise improvement and ensure that your skill in aiming does not decrease. I also have a few tips for aiming specifically, one of those being something that I have noticed I and so many non-pro players do, and that's tensing your arm when aiming. This leads to more flicking of shots and far less control of what you're doing, so try to focus on relaxing the muscles in your forearms while aiming. Obviously having these muscles tense while building and editing makes it far easier to do, so that's okay. The only way to practice this is just to focus on it and build the habit up. There is no specific fix to this problem. The next way you could very easily improve your aim is by changing your DPI. Research has been done that proves input delay and latency is decreased by increasing the DPI on your mouse. It's really easy to do, so there's no reason not to. This is particularly relevant if you're playing on 400 DPI. All pros have now switched to at least 800, if not 1600, as lower DPIs are just so much worse. To change your DPI, go into your relevant mouse software, navigate to the performance section and change the DPI. Obviously this will look slightly different for all people, but it should be simple enough. And if you can't figure out how to do it, there will definitely be a tutorial online on how to do it. Now you may be wondering how changing your DPI will make your aim better, because it will change your sensitivity. The way to correct this is to decrease your sensitivity by the same factor you increased your DPI by. For example, if you were on 400 DPI and you increased to 800, you would halve your sensitivity in-game, or if you were on 400 and increased to 1600, you would quarter your sensitivity in-game. Moving on from aim, the next thing I want to talk about is VOD reviewing. If you've been wanting to be a pro for a long time, you're probably sick of hearing people telling you to VOD review, but they're not doing it to waste your time, you actually have to do it to improve. I'd suggest setting aside at least 1 to 2 hours a week to VOD review, and also watch games from pros in the time you can't sit and completely focus. You should spend half of your time looking through replays or videos of your own games. While doing this, get a physical piece of paper, whether that be a sticky note, a notebook, or just an A4 sheet, and write down a list of all of your mistakes. The physical act of writing it down will force your brain to acknowledge the mistake and consider it, more deeply than if you were to type it or just note it in your head. On the other side of the paper, or on a different piece of paper, write down an action that corresponds to each one of the mistakes on how to fix them. For example, if your mistake was losing a fight because you couldn't hit an edit, the action could be to warm up in Raiders Mechanics map and practice close-up edits in Creative. Or, if your mistake was that you rotated at the wrong time, the action could be to analyse pro games to figure out where they rotate and why. The other half of your VOD reviewing should be spent watching pro games, either through Twitch VODs, YouTube, or in replays. I would advise staying away from YouTube, as often videos are edited to cut out parts of the game that would be classed as boring, but could actually be vital to watch and learn from. Write down 4 titles for lists: early game, mid game, end game, and fighting. Then watch the game and write down anything they do right in the corresponding section. When you play, you should attempt to implement each one of these successes from the pros into your games each day. This will boost improvement and eventually you'll be a well-rounded player. If you're VOD reviewing your own duo game, looking through it with your duo is very important. This allows you to look at mistakes and work out how to fix them together, which can improve your chemistry in-game. Slightly linking to the last point, one of the things that is absolutely essential if you want to succeed in FNCS and bigger tournaments is finding a good duo. Your duo needs to be at least your skill level and preferably above. For example, if you are a player with 1500 PR, your preferable duo will be one who had between 2 and 4000 PR. The main reason for this is that it means you can learn from them, which will increase your skill, but you're not so far behind them that you can't keep up. Your duo should also be motivated to grind. If your teammate is unmotivated, that could lead to you becoming unmotivated and not wanting to grind the game anymore. You should both want to become the best and boost each other to grind the game. If you don't do it together, you can't improve. You should also find someone who doesn't blame you for all of the duo's mistakes. In the heat of the moment, they might blame you, but they need to be able to think back and realise that it may not have been your fault, but could have been a problem with both of you. One specific thing that both you and your duo need to understand is that there does not have to be a set IGL and fragger. If you look at pros, you'll realise that most of them now don't do this. For example, Miro and Cooper, who won the FNCS Global Championship, did not have set roles. Often, one of them would just give the comm, i.e. Miro, you IGL this endgame, and they would swap, just like that. Having concrete roles like this could confine you in the plays you make and overall limit your performance. Both of you have to be well-rounded players to perform well in this day and age. Your duo needs to be up to playing scrims with you. This is the best way to practice your skills and build your chemistry in-game as a duo. Now, scrims are very important. It's almost impossible to improve to the level of pro players if you don't play them, as nothing else will give you such realistic practice for stacked tournament endgames. I'd recommend playing at least 5 scrim games every week, although this could vary depending on the amount of time you have to play. Play both solo and duo scrims, as this means you can focus on yourself as a player as well as practicing your teamwork with your duo. Preferably, you should be playing scrims that don't have zone rules, as this most accurately recreates a tournament environment and allows you to work on loot and surge routes. But if you don't have enough PR, you need to be playing open scrims with zone rules to work your way up the leaderboard and earn an invite into higher level customs. Many people respond to this point about scrims with a counterpoint of saying that loads of pros don't regularly grind scrims, but that's because they've already done it for a long time and built up sufficient skills and knowledge to not need to grind anymore. However, the best pros still always grind. For example, Boop, the owner of the biggest scrim server on EU, Noble, posted the lifetime scrims played by pros. What you'll notice from this list is that the best players such as Queasy, Vino and Cammy have all played loads, while those players who are seen as good fighters but not as good in finals, such as Vadil and Bevies, have played far less. There are obvious exceptions to this, one of them being Tayson, but the one thing you have to remember is simply the fact that you are not Tayson, and he's been the best for a long time. My final point is one that is not respected by most people, and that's to remember that Fortnite is not your life. While it may be your overall goal to go pro, you need to have a life outside of the game. If you spend all day playing, you'll quickly get burnt out and stop improving, so I'd suggest taking at least 2 to 3 days off per month from the game and make sure you spend enough time outside and with your family and friends. This will increase your mood and in turn your motivation to grind the game. There have been many times where I've just played the game all day every day, and I've ended up getting bored, not wanting to grind anymore, and therefore performing terribly in tournaments. Overall, going pro in Fortnite definitely isn't easy, but there are so many players who completely neglect these tips and would most likely be pros by now if they've been following them just for 1 year. If you really want to be a pro player, you need to start doing everything I've said in this video. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. Thank you so much if you've made it to the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.